Hey guys, this is Dave with Gazaudio. This is the Tangent Space, my current favorite USB DAC under $100. It has dual CS43131 DAC chips and is fully balanced. It has both a 3.5mm single-ended and 4.4mm balanced output. It also has a physical volume rocker, and it only cost $89. This is, well, a lot cheaper. So not long ago, I named the Tangent Space my favorite USB DAC under $100 because it not only offered a lot of great features for the price, but also it just simply sounded great, even with some of my higher end IEMs, and it offered enough power to drive all of my headphones, not to mention it's ultra quiet, fully balanced, and super tiny. I mean, this thing had me really excited, and as much as I've enjoyed the Tangent Space, it may have just been outdone. Or has it? Well, I'm going to share my experience, talk about some comparisons, and try to determine where I think that it lands in terms of overall performance and value. But first, let's go over what's included in the box with the Moondrop Dawn Pro. We have the Dawn Pro itself. It also comes with a USB Type-C to C cable, a Type-A to C adapter, and some product information. As for price, specifications, and design, the Dawn Pro is priced at $49 and has a dual CS43131 DAC chip configuration, and of course that means that the Dawn Pro is fully balanced as well. As for output, it will give you 4 volts and 120 milliwatts out of the 4.4 and 2 volts out of the 3.5, and the voltage was the only information I could find on the 3.5 output. I could not find its actual power output. But I can tell you it's enough power to power any IM, and it even did okay with most of my full-size headphones like my FT3s out of the balanced output. However, it did struggle to push them out of the 3.5 in high gain. I had to push the volume to almost 100%, and even then, I could tell the sound was starting to thin out and it was just weakening a little bit. But again, it did sound okay out of the 4.4. Some other specifications, it has an impressive signal-to-noise ratio of 131 dBs out of the 4.4 and 123 out of the 3.5. As for audio decoding, it can decode up to 32-bit PCM and DSD256, which I did test, and it had no problem at all decoding those formats. As for the build and design, the Dawn Pro is very compact, and while it is just a little bigger than its predecessor, the Dawn, it is a little smaller than most other USB DACs that have a detachable cable option. As for inputs, outputs, and buttons, the Dawn Pro has a Type-C input, a 3.5mm single-ended and 4.4 balanced output. It also has a 100-step physical volume rocker. And then the last thing I want to mention is that there are some settings that can be accessed through the Moondrop Link app, like filter options, gain, LED, and volume settings. Okay, let's move on to the sound. Okay, let's talk about the sound of the Dawn Pro. But one thing I want to quickly point out is that the Dawn Pro actually has less power output than the original Dawn. The original Dawn gives you 240 milliwatts at 32 ohms, and the Dawn Pro decreases that down to 120 milliwatts, and that's out of the balanced output. And that's okay, because that's still more than enough power for IEMs and probably, again, even most headphones. So even though the Dawn Pro is $20 less than the original, it does cut that power output roughly in half. But again, it does add a 3.5 and 4.4 output, physical volume buttons, and a detachable Type-C USB cable. It also offers basically the same dual DAC configuration, and it's fully balanced. But the question is, does it sound any different? And the answer to that is no, at least not with IEMs that I could hear. However, I think the original Dawn does handle some of my full-size headphones a little better. And again, this is comparing the 4.4 outputs. The most notable difference being in how it handled the bass frequencies. And I think the extra power with the original Dawn does help it kind of bolster or reinforce the low end just a little bit more. And while I was able to get my full-size headphones up to decent volume levels with the Dawn Pro and still maintain relatively good levels of detail, the higher the volume got, the more the sound started to thin out just a little bit. But with IEMs, they sound basically identical, which is awesome because the original Dawn sounds great. But in terms of the Dawn Pro's general presentation, for the most part, it's nearly linear or uncolored. However, it's not as linear as something like the FiiO K5 or the FiiO Q11. Those are both what I would consider to be almost completely neutral in my opinion. The Dawn Pro does have just a small amount of warmth compared to those. So it does a very good job of portraying instruments and vocals naturally. But it's not what I would consider to be overly warm either. It might lean a little warm, but it really does still manage to sit almost right in between sounding clinical and musical. So it kind of gives you the benefit of both. And it gives you a fairly decent amount of detail as well. So you get the detail, but you also get the natural rendering of instruments and vocals as well. And those attributes are sustained throughout the entire frequency spectrum. So bass notes are fuller, but still generally just sound correct. There's an adequate amount of bass dynamics, mid-bass texture, lower mid detail. Then as you come out of the bass into the mid-range, that natural presentation also carries nicely throughout the entire mid-range. And again, it's giving me plenty of mid-range detail and clarity, but also doing a really good job of maintaining vocal and instrument naturalness. And then as you move into the treble detail is very good. I'm also getting a lot of upper treble presence as well. But the bottom line is that the Dawn Pro is giving me basically all of the attributes that I look for in a device at this price point or even higher. So it gives me a fairly neutral presentation, although there is a small amount of coloration, but still it's good for this price. I think it's pretty transparent. It provides decent dynamics and it has a noiseless background. So it's a very, very quiet device. So then where does the Dawn Pro stand in terms of the competition? Well, we know its sound performance is on par with its predecessor, the original Dawn, at least with IEMs and most headphones also. Again, the extra power of the original Dawn might give you slightly better bass control with some harder to drive full-size headphones, but it's $20 less and it offers quite a few very enticing features that, in my opinion, give it a decisive edge over the original Dawn. But here's the thing, up until now, the original Dawn has been my top ultra budget pick, which means it's basically being dethroned by its successor, which I think that's good. That means they're getting better and they're lowering the price, so that's a good thing. So the Dawn Pro now moves into the top spot and takes the title of the top ultra budget pick. So that's pretty cool. But then we also have the Tangem Space, which currently holds the top spot as my top pick for the highest performing DAC under $100. And with there being so many similarities between the Dawn Pro and the Tantrum Space, it definitely warrants comparison, and it begs the question, which is the better performer under $100? Because it offers basically all of the same features, just not as much power, but for $40 less, which is pretty substantial. It has the same CS43131 dual DAC configuration with fully balanced architecture. It offers both a 3.5 and 4.4 output. It has physical volume buttons, a detachable Type-C USB, but what about the sound? Well, with IEMs, when I was doing a side-by-side with the Tantrum Space and the Dawn Pro, at first, I had a really difficult time distinguishing the differences out of both outputs. But as I started cycling through my test tracks and trying different IEM pairings, I did start to notice that the Dawn Pro had just a slightly fuller sound. So its general presentation was just a little bit richer, but in almost every other regard, their performance was the same. But again, it's $40 less. So in terms of pure sound performance, in my opinion, they're basically on equal footing. Again, with the Dawn Pro having an ever so slightly warmer presentation. But in terms of pure value, the Dawn Pro definitely wins hands down. So of course, the Dawn Pro does get my recommendation, especially if you're just starting out in the hobby and you're looking for an affordable way to kind of ease your way into the hobby. Then this is an excellent choice in my opinion. This is a very, very solid little device for the $50 price. So that concludes my review of the Moondrop Dawn Pro. If you're new to the channel and you like our videos, please take a minute and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to go a step further, you can also support us through our Patreon. I'll be sure and leave a link in the description. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this review. Please like this video, please share this video. I hope you have an awesome day.